Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube. I'm going live on both channels here. So I want to welcome you guys to day, I don't even know what, of workshop week. I'm so thrilled about today's show. Just a little recap of what this week is all about, what we're up to, why we're doing it. I got invited to participate in this thing called the Bundle, and I really like to think of it as a resource library. It's where my digital product lives. I made a course, I gave it to the Bundle, and so we've been talking a lot about how do you homestead and how do you make money on the homestead. And for me, the big aha moment was learning to make digital products. And as I started to see a lot of success with that and realize that I could fund my farm dream with digital products, I was like, oh, wow, I can help other people do that too and overcome this issue of finances or fear. But also, really just overcoming that hump of starting homesteading and starting your own business. And so, my goal is to really just take your hand and help you feel like it's possible for you too, and invite other experts in homesteading, farming, gardening, and experts in their business so we can ask them, how are they doing it? Because there's many ways to fund your farm dream, right? There's many ways to homestead and farm, but hopefully you guys are gleaning a lot from this time together. I know I'm having a great time bringing my friends on the show. And today we have one of my dear friends, another one. Yesterday was Jill. If you missed that, definitely go check that out. Solid gold there today. We've got Jess from Roots and Refuge, who I know so many of you guys know and love as well. And I'm so excited to have her on the show. So without further ado, that should go through. Let's give her a big round of applause, throw those emojis up, thank her for being with us today. She's just doing this because she's a good friend and she wants to help other people feel encouraged too. So here she is. Hello, good morning.
Hey, I'm sitting in my car, so that's where I'm coming to you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Sometimes, listen, as a mom and a farmer, sometimes the safest place is your car. I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about, you're talking about business and making it work and all that stuff. The juggle of time is definitely one of the things that goes into that for me. So
yes, well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know I kind of talked with you behind the scenes of like, this is really just about encouraging people. And I know that's your heart too. Like, that's so much of what you've done with your business and with your content. And so, in case anybody here doesn't know who you are, although I feel like most gardening roads online lead to Roots and Refuge, in case they don't, would you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
yeah, for sure. My name is Jessica Sowards. My friends call me Jess, and that I have been sharing on YouTube has been my primary platform, but before that was Instagram. Been on social media for about the last 10 years. My entire journey in homesteading has been kind of documented through social media as we've learned and just shared our mistakes and the things that have worked for us. And truly, at the root of all of that has always been to share our passions in growing food. My husband Jeremiah and I have 27 acres in the Midlands of South Carolina. So we're here now. We were previously in Arkansas and made the move here. And yeah, just I have very passionate about encouraging people to grow and to learn where they are with what they have. Because this has truly made my life so rich, what we get to do. And I love to get to see other people experience that.
So awesome. Well, I'm so glad you started your journey because it was part of what led me to start mine. In case anybody doesn't know this, Jessica was my third YouTube subscriber. So I think connected on Instagram, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the YouTube thing. And yeah, I mean, you were the final person that kind of pushed me into my journey. So I'm so glad that you started your journey so that it could give me the push to start mine. And yeah, I know there's so many things I want to ask you, but I wonder if you could take us back to what it was like as you were first getting started. I actually didn't know it was 10 years ago that you really started your content creation journey. Um, I know that you and I are both big dreamers. So you obviously had this dream, I think, 10 years ago. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
what that was like and maybe what obstacle you had to overcome to start the content creation process.
So interestingly, I did not start content creation with intention. 9 years ago, we moved on to our first farm. And at the time, I was a photographer. And of course, I had Instagram before. So before Instagram was social media, it was kind of like, it was like it was an app for like editing photos, kind of pretty much. And it was more like your own personal album before there was like this whole social networking thing. So this is kind of in Facebook's big heyday. Like Facebook had just become public and was no longer just for colleges. And then Instagram kind of comes onto the scene a few years later. And I had Instagram like way back when. There's actually an account that I don't even know what my name was. There is an account there that was my first Instagram account. I don't know how to get into it, but it has pictures of Jackson and Asher when they were like toddlers. And anyway, I shared photos because I was a photographer, and I was sharing photos. And when we moved onto our farm 9 years ago, I had this crazy thing happen where I was involved in a friend of mine lost her children in a tornado. It was just this horrific thing. And I actually wrote an article about it, and it went like crazy viral. And on a blog I had that I was very sporadic at posting. And at that time, it sort of launched me into ministry. So this is a very long and rambling road that I took to social media. But when I came into doing ministry, I was being invited to these places to come speak. There was a big conference down in Texas that I went to called the If Gathering, and I went down there, and they're like, "What's your social media?" And I'm like my Facebook name? It's my name, like I didn't understand like having a social media presence. I was not tech savvy. I was not at all looking to build something. And they were like, "Well, what's your Instagram?" And so I told them my Instagram name, which was weird. And it was literally something like Jessie Sowards 1 2 3 4 5 7. Like it was one of those names, I was not trying to build a brand. And all these people started following me from this thing and connecting. And here I am posting pictures of my chickens because my farm dream is coming true. I'm so excited. And I'm posting pictures, maybe 17 pictures in the same day. Like, I'm not trying to build a brand here. And I'm hashtagging chickens because I see other people hashtagging. I don't understand what this is doing. And all these strangers start commenting, like, "What breed is that?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" Chickens. And I literally accidentally started social media. And when I think I had my first 1,000 followers way back, this is 2014, 15-ish, I thought, wait a second, I think that when people do social media like this and they get, because I knew bloggers that had gotten a blog that got really big and then they got to write books, and it was my lifelong ambition to write a book.
Okay.
And I thought maybe I should start trying to do this on purpose, and maybe someday I could write a book. Like that was the end goal, was just write a book. So I started to kind of intentionally develop Instagram, maybe stop posting 17 pictures with my kids like in a row and stuff like that. And in the process of doing that, I learned what a rich community it was. It really helped me as I was starting my homesteading journey to have that community. And it's funny that now some of the really big Instagram accounts in the homesteading world, we were kind of biting our teeth in around the same time and kind of cutting our teeth in the social media world around the same time, things at the same time. And it's pretty cool because I have actually relationships now that I've had on Instagram for nearly a decade that I've been homesteading, learning with people and learning social media with people, which is very neat. But it was probably, I think it was a couple years after that I really started to do YouTube. And that was after being in prayer one day and just really feeling led to do it. And at the time of starting YouTube, I think I had 10, 12 something thousand followers on Instagram. So that was a pretty substantial following in this niche 5 or 6 years ago, which is when it was. And then YouTube really started to take off. And of course, that's been what actually launched us into all the opportunities that we've had. And of course, I've written a couple books now and I've been able to do some really cool stuff. So that's a very long story, but I accidentally started social media by using the hashtag chickens.
That's the best tagline to a story. That's so funny. I've heard bits and pieces of that as we've gotten to know each other over the years. And I knew those different stories, but I didn't really know how they all came together. And that it was this accidental journey all from the hashtag chickens. I had no idea. That's that's so amazing. So it sounds like, and this is something we've been talking a lot about this week, is like sometimes you start one place and it's not really where you end up, but you kind of
Yeah.
just say yes. And then you have to give yourself, like last night we were talking about grace, see where it goes. And like try and cast a vision, try and kind of get there. And if you decide along the way that you need to pivot for business or for content or for
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle, whatever, like you reserve that right at any point in time to pivot and into something new. And it sounds like there's been like different pivot points for you along the way. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what that pivoting journey was like for you, and any aha moments that
Yeah.
was like, oh, I need to kind of pivot here and move into this
Yeah.
next thing.
For me, I would say my journey has been marked by being just genuinely sensitive to the leading of God. I have a really hard time talking about social media and the business aspect of social media without involving faith, because I truly feel like it has been by the leading of God that I'm here. I feel like it has been by the grace of God that it's been successful. And I've never stuck with anything as long as I've stuck with this. I mean, truly. I'm not joking. Like, I'm extremely like high ADD person that goes from one thing to another, and like the fact that I've been so steadfast in like homesteading, gardening, and all this, I have to give the Lord credit, because frankly, like I just don't have it in me to be so steady. I've made like 1,200 YouTube videos. Like, that's nuts. I've never made that much of anything. I have like 800 hobbies that I've started and stopped. And so, like, when I look at this, to me, the pivot points have given me the staying power. And there's definitely been times that I have to say, I have to be very honest with myself about where I'm at in something. Like, is my heart in this? For me, and I know we'll probably get to this, whenever I talk to people who want to do social media or who want to homestead or who want to have any sort of business, but especially a business regarding social media and homesteading. I think authenticity is the number one important thing that you can ever possibly do for a homestead, a business, social media. Like, it's so imperative to be authentic. And for me, I have to make sure I'm not falling into the status quo. Like, I have to make sure that I'm not going through the motions, that I'm actually staying in a place that my heart is engaged. And that has required pivoting at different times. I got really sick last year. It required some rest. Frankly, these platforms change. Like, Instagram is a completely different animal than it was when I first started. It's actually changed more than once. The whole new Reels change was different than there was another change. I mean, Instagram became a social media platform since I've been using it, which is crazy. And you have to be willing to pivot and also stay true to yourself. Like, I love all of the reels that so many people do where they're dancing and they're funny and they have all of that stuff. Man, I don't have it in me. Like, if I were to try to do somebody, like take somebody else's special sauce and put it on myself, like it would be so inauthentic. And that's okay. Like, the pivot comes with stopping, and instead of just going with the flow and going with the status quo, saying, what am I supposed to do here? Like, what's my flavor? What's authentic for me? And I started to feel a little lost in the noise in the fall when I was so sick, and whenever there was so much demand and there was so much changing in a lot of the platforms, and I had to stop and really get quiet and go back to seeking the Lord and like, what's my voice here? I started sharing poetry, which was very random, but it's what I've got to share. I mean, that's been the key for me this whole time. And I think I'm kind of rambling. I don't know if it's coming across clear, but like, the key for me the whole time is I have to walk my path, and I have to show up as Jessica Sowards in this space and know that nobody else can be Jessica Sowards. I don't have to do what other people are doing. At the beginning of YouTube, my channel blew up on garden tours, 40-minute videos, when at the time the number one advice was keep them under 10 minutes. And what I felt that I had to do to be my expression was geek out over my garden for 40 minutes. And YouTube pushed it like crazy because it kept people watching for a long time. It was different than what was being done. And that was me being authentic. And every step of the way, the biggest pivots have been looking at maybe what was happening in the stream And instead of just jumping in and going that route, stopping and saying, but what should I do here? Like, what is the truest expression of me here? Because that's the only thing that I ever really want to do, is the true expression of me.
That's really, really good. And I'm so glad that you said that because I know that I have fallen into the trap many times of without even knowing it, just because I was consuming information, it was affecting me. And then I was accidentally making stuff that was similar because I was watching that and I wasn't really asking
Yeah.
myself that question, at least early on as a content creator. I had elements that I know were definitely like 100% me, but then I felt like I remember even having those conversations with myself feeling like I had to tell some kind of homestead story when I was in an apartment. And I was like, how like at that time 5 years ago, it was a totally ridiculous thing to say you were a homesteader in an apartment. I mean, I literally felt like I was crazy, but I was putting on that identity of like, this is my dream. I'm going to do whatever I can here to make that happen. Taking advice from you, taking advice from other people who had gone before me and were like, just do what you can where you are. And but I really struggled with this. How do I tell my story now? Five years later, the last really, I've been working 18-hour days since like 2021, November 2021, when I was like, I need to learn marketing because I don't understand this. And storytelling has been such a key part of who you are and just how your brain works for so long. It didn't come naturally to me. It was a skill that I had to learn. And now I see what you were trying to tell me so many years ago. So, a fun fact for you guys, I just knew I was like, I'm gonna meet Jess one day. We're gonna be friends. It's cool. And like literally that same year, I think within the same year, Jeremiah dared me on a live. He's like, "Oh, you want to come to the shindig? Like, come on out." And I literally flew out to Arkansas as this like young married woman, no children. I was like, "All right, you dared me. I'll come." That's how I met Jess at the shindig. And I remember distinctly on that trip, you told me we were outside your garden. You were like, "Think of your life, your content as a story." And I remember distinctly you telling me it's like this book with different chapters. And at the time, my content was like how to start a garden, how to sourdough, how to do all these different things, and it wasn't really piecing together. And so now part of my mission and passion is helping other people like know who you are. Like let's look at your story, and then let's look at who you want to serve, and let's look at how you can get somebody from point A to point B. And if you can do that much, if you can identify that much, you have enough to make content, you have enough to make products, you haven't like that is the nature of content creation and of business. And I laugh because I'm like, just tried to tell me this so long ago, but it like wasn't it wasn't going in my brain. I mean, he planted the seed and it finally got watered and finally came to life here. But I think the really important thing that you said in that is like everybody has their own secret sauce. And if you're trying to borrow somebody else's secret sauce, it ain't gonna taste so good. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So don't try to be somebody else. Like find who you are. And I think that there's a heart work there for a lot of people that it's hard to do by yourself, and that's why community can be so important. But a lot of us don't want to go there. We'd rather just like try and be somebody else. And so I'm so glad that you're speaking to that. I'm wondering like what advice now, fast forward like 4 years later from that conversation, what advice would you give somebody who's maybe just starting off on this like content creation, business, offer creation journey where they're like, how do I define who I am? And how do I define who I can help? Like, what might you say to them?
Yeah. I think, I mean, to reiterate what we're saying, content creation can make you a more authentic version of yourself. It can serve as a mirror if you're really willing to look at it, or it can allow you to be a great pretender. I mean, and you get to decide whether you are going to create content that's a mirror or a mask. And for me, when we first started, Jeremiah and I, this is like confession. Like we have a fiery marriage. Like we are extremely passionate. People are like, no, we're so in love. We really are. But I promise you, like we are just as passionate when we are disagreeing as we are when we're like crazy about each other. And so we have these like intense conversations where we are like just both very passionate communicators. And in the younger years of our marriage, there would be these rifts and these ruptures in our relationship because we would get into these arguments that we just couldn't see eye to eye and we couldn't agree. And we'd go 2 days with being, obviously we're running a home together and a business, at the time, a farm, not a business yet, but we would be very like distant, emotionally distant. And I remember when we started content creation on the very first year, sitting down and being like, listen, we got to get our stuff together because I can't go turn the camera on and present something that's not authentic. So we no longer have the luxury of 2, 3, 4 day riffs where we're just like politely existing in the same space. Like we have to get to the point that we can quickly reconnect, or we can't keep doing this because we can't present something that's not true. And I would say that for that reason, content creation has made my marriage so much stronger. When I first started, I remember that I would have to pause the camera to bite my kid's head off because they were acting a fool while I was trying to film. And I stopped and I thought, my God, I don't want to be doing something that I'm too ashamed to put out in front of people. And it made me see how I was like having a short temper with my kids. And I had to stop and like address that in myself. I don't want to have to turn the camera off for how I address my kids. And it changed how I mother because I was looking at the mirror. I was looking at myself thinking, how would someone who doesn't actually know me view this? And that to me was a huge value of social media by making the choice to come authentically. Now, I have since learned that there are a lot of people who are showing up and they are in a fight with their husband. They are presenting something that's not true. They are, they are losing it. Now, I do want to clarify, I still bite my kid's head off occasionally. Jeremiah and I still get into arguments that we, take a little while to resolve. But I will say that social media and making content has made me aware of myself and how I am engaging in those situations and held me to a higher standard because came off. I have, are you there?
Yeah.
Am I back? Okay. I have blockers on all of my social media so that I don't spend too much time on it.
Oh, it's all like, get off Instagram. You're like, I'm talking here.
But I have been able to use that as a mirror. Had grace with myself. I don't expect perfection, but I feel like it has made me a better person to have that mirror in front of me. And I have refused to allow it to become a mask. I refuse to allow this to become a performance. I can't be two people. Being one good person is enough work. I cannot come up with a whole other person and pretend to be that when the camera's on. And for me, the devotion to authenticity has allowed this to fortify me rather than drain me. And I think that's why we've been able to continue doing it. And so my biggest advice when I see people starting out is like, choose that this is going to be a mirror instead of a mask. And two, like, you have to stay honest with yourself in order to do that. Like, look in the mirror, don't take on shame and condemnation, but don't try to make something that just people are going to like, right? That is the best way to put on a mask, is where you think, well, the real me and what I really think and what I'm really doing and what I actually have to offer isn't enough. So how can I change that to what they're going to accept? It's costly to be vulnerable. It's costly to come honestly. It is. And in the case where I'm talking about my relationship with my kids, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my farm, it's costly sometimes to have to get over myself and handle that business so that I can actually show up authentically. But it is a worthy cost. And so anybody who's starting out looking to do a social media business, I would thoroughly tell you to just disarm yourself when it comes to how you see yourself and be prepared to get real, because this can either make your life amazing or it can tear it to shreds. I've seen a lot of people get torn to shreds by social media. I've seen a lot of people start and quit. But the people who are prepared to actually go on that journey, search themselves out, be honest and be authentic. I have watched some people I just greatly admire. You, Natalie, are one of the people that I have watched grow in this. Jill, I know you had Jill on here yesterday. I mean, I have walked with enough people from this very start of their social media journey to watch some incredible growth happen, and people who have far surpassed me in social media platforms that like I watch, that I've been with them from the beginning, and I love watching the development of people, and they turn into all different things because people are so different. But when people show up authentically, it is beautiful what this can do for them.
That's so good. Yeah, it's like start somewhere and almost peel the layers back and get to that true self. I think I might have talked about that with
Mm-hmm.
Jill yesterday a little bit of like there's this onion effect. I'm harnessing my inner Shrek. You can tell when I grew up because
Yeah.
Shrek, the Shrek metaphor keeps coming back. But yeah, I'm like an onion, I think he says. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I think of it like that. It's like it's okay if you're starting with an onion that you've peeled a little bit, but like eventually let yourself peel back those layers and peel back those layers. And it's almost like you would be depriving yourself that opportunity of growth if you didn't choose to show up and pursue that dream and pursue that vision and allow it to kind of cultivate you as well. You said some really good things I just want to reiterate for people. So mirror over mask, stay honest with yourself and allow the process to really level you up. That's a little bit of my own
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing there, but
Yeah.
um, so good. Well, I would love to ask you too a little bit about, tell us about your dream because it's evolved over the years, I think. And now you cast a really big dream. And then maybe we
Mm-hmm.
can also talk a little bit about like what vision casting tools, if you want to call it that. I know a lot of it is just talking with the Lord, but um, tell us about your vision and then maybe we
Yeah.
can help other people like learn how to cast
Yeah.
their own vision.
For me, vision has always come in bits and pieces. And so I like to think of it like a seed collection. You know, you get a little seed here and you get a little seed there, and eventually it turns into an amazing garden. But it takes like gathering those things up and being willing to hold on to them when it's not time to plant them yet. And, it's interesting. I had said for a long time I wanted to teach people to grow food hands on a larger scale. And I had this vision of like, classes and different things. And, you and I were actually on that trip up to Washington when I first saw clearly like a strong vision of like this big glass greenhouse and this big, beautiful place. And it was so far beyond me. And we were there doing this kind of workshop, and the question was asked, like, what's the, if you had the next 5 needs met? Like, tell me the next 5 things you would do if you had all the resources you could. And it was like super practical stuff, like fix the air conditioner and, buy a new car that actually runs right and different things like that. It's like, okay, what are the next 5 things you would do? And then you write that list. It's what are the next 5 things you would do? And depending on where you are in your life, sometimes it takes like 4 or 5 next 5 things until you actually find out what your dreams are. Because sometimes we have to clear the water of like our desperate needs before we can think about dreaming. And I think so many of us have lived in poverty or in lack for so long, and we have lived in the oppression of just surviving, that we don't know how to dream. And so I think sometimes we have to clear the water and get brave enough to dream, and it's okay to start small and allow it to get bigger. When I used to dream of doing classes and stuff, I imagined a little shed out on my little 4-acre farm that I was going to teach classes on. That's how that dream started for me, because that's all I had the bravery to imagine, was something within the realm of what I may possibly be able to make happen at some point. But when the big dream started to come, it was very challenging. It was very scary because I was imagining a center, a learning center, and a place to teach people as this, with internships and a school and providing food for a community and doing retreats and doing, I want to do like, not, I don't want to just teach people to steward the earth. I want to teach people to steward relationships all around, their relationship with the earth, their relationships with each other. I want people to bring their teenagers to our place, our learning center, and spend a weekend where their teenagers are getting poured into and where they're getting poured into, and they can learn how to connect with their teenagers. Because, a lot of people don't know how to connect with their teenagers because they didn't have a positive experience when they were teenagers. There are so many things, like I want to see the land healed and I want to see people healed. And that's what I envision when I think of our learning center. Practically teaching people to start seeds on a Thursday night, but also repairing relationships that are happening in people's families and how they relate to the earth. Providing food for a community, a farm to table restaurant. Like, I have this very big vision for what Roots and Refuge Farm is actually meant to be. right now, and how it has been for me, when I first really started to wrap my head around that vision, it was still very much impossible. I maybe had, less than 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I had no reason to believe that I was ever going to have the kind of brand that would have any business creating something like that. As of today, I can't afford to create what I'm dreaming of creating. But I have so much confidence that will happen. And what I can afford to do right now is the next step that's in front of me. And that's my biggest practical thing. One is to clear the water enough that you can bravely dream. And people might hear you, Natalie, share your dream, and they might say, I can never think of something like that. But what is the scariest thing that you can dream? Like, what is the biggest thing that you can push yourself to believe? Because now, 5 years later, you're dreaming these bigger dreams, but 5 years ago, your biggest dream was to call yourself a homesteader while you lived in an apartment. And there's a maturation of these things that when we're committed to stretching ourselves and personal growth, I think our dreams are able to grow as long as we're developing the capacity to hold them. But along the way, you push yourself to dream in a way that scares you, and then you rein yourself back in and you do the next thing that's right in front of you. And sometimes those steps are maddeningly simple. And I am still reining myself back into very simple things. My biggest thing that I've been focusing on the last few months has been baking bread. I've been gluten-free since September. I can't even eat the bread, but I've been baking bread for my kids' school lunch sandwiches and reconnecting with the simplicity of real food. And at first I kept feeling, I just need to bake bread. And I'm trying to do all these big things. But when I come back to that next simple step, what I was finding was that these massive waves of inspiration were hitting me while I was in the kitchen with my apron on. And I'm writing down plots of novels, and I'm writing down class ideas, and I'm writing down all this stuff, because when we are positioned properly in what we're supposed to be doing, all the doors open up to us, right? And so the next thing in front of you, as simple and seemingly unimportant as it may be, it's the very best thing you can do to achieve a dream. And it might be planting a garden, it might be taking a class, it might be, consuming different content, it might be making different content, it might be super practical stuff like managing the massive pile of clothes that's on your floor and hanging them up instead of getting dressed out of the wardrobe. Sometimes it's like these little things that are just practical stewardship that we want to dismiss as unimportant, but the tiny things, like I am the queen of the wardrobe, and I thankfully don't have a wardrobe right now, because that's been one of the things that I was convicted about. Like, your stewardship of the tiny things makes you worthy of stewarding the large things. And sometimes we're going to feel pushed to do something tiny. It's important. It is so important. So yeah, get your mind around the biggest dream you can bravely hope for. Know that it's going to grow. If it's stretching you, that's good. But know that it's going to grow, and then do the very next step you can see that takes you into the direction of that. That's my practical advice.
I love that. I love that. Such a rich thing that you just shared with us, and thank you so much for sharing that. And it's so true. Be willing to dream the big dream, but then also be willing to take that next step. And I think that can be so hard for people of well, what is that next step? And if I can kind of deduce it even a little bit more, I heard you say a lot of different things in there of take the next indicated step if it's obvious. If you're walking over clothes, let's steward our wardrobe a little bit better. So funny. I've never heard that before. I love it. I was the queen of the wardrobe in high school. My mom would be like, pick up your room. I'm like, this works for me. It's fine. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's totally fine. I understand this system. Okay. The system works for me. But if that's the next thing, then do that. And I think something you touched on too is really important. And I've learned this from some mentors in my life of this thing of the ladder of believability. Sometimes we'll say, I want to make $5 million in my business, or I want to buy the 120-acre farm. And that actually does something to our brain where it's I can't actually believe that yet. I can say that I want to believe that, but I can't actually get my knower and my knower to connect.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really important to just say, let's hit 10K, or let's even just hit 1K of profitability first. And then let's hit 10K, and then let's hit this. And I know for me last year, I don't know, like, I have these spirit-filled moments too, like you've been talking about, where is it me? Is it God? I don't really know, but I'll get these little moments of clarity where it's like, that's my next step. And for me, I just heard this voice of like, you're gonna hit 10K in your in your business. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna hit 10K in my business. All right, what do I need to do? And it was a series of all these little baby steps, creating a
Yeah.
course, learning how to nurture an audience, like all these little things that ultimately led to hitting 10K months in my business. And I was like, what? Like, okay, I did this thing. And for me, I have huge goals. I want to see, hey, it's a good life be like a million, a multi-million dollar business one day. But like I had to start at like just making $500 selling an ebook. And then I got in trouble
Yeah.
with Etsy for that and they kicked me off their platform. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm switching over to Shopify now. And then I really started my own company and business. And I got to see the result of like, be faithful with something small. Just put a little something
Mhm.
on Etsy and see how that goes. Get in trouble with the Etsy god, switch over to Shopify, and then like
Yeah.
see just little steps of stewardship. And I think that's so important. The ladder of believability and like cast the big dream. If it feels lofty, just take the next indicated step and be willing to believe that like a little step toward that. Something I say all the time too is like baby steps in the direction of your dreams are still baby steps in the right direction. And so I think that's so good. So allow yourself to do the thing that your heart is calling for too, is something that I heard you say, which is
Mhm.
sometimes so hard as like an Enneagram 3. I'm like, let's hustle, let's do this, let's get the next thing. But like
Mhm.
sometimes I just need the creativity of baking bread, and that can actually unleash so much as well. And
Yeah.
so don't always be pushing yourself, fellow Enneagram 3s, fellow big dreamers. Like take time to bake the bread. I'm receiving that today.
Good.
um, Oh, there was something else I was gonna ask you, and I didn't write it down. What was I gonna ask you? Oh, okay, so talking a little bit more on the business aspect of things. So, I heard you say, like, "We're not in a place to, like, build this right now, but I'm just believing that it's gonna happen," which is such, I think, an important dialogue to have with ourselves of, like, it's great to cast the dream, but don't be discouraged that, like, you're not
Mhm.
where you wanna be there yet, but trust that, like, the systems and the hard work and the baby steps are gonna help you understand how you're gonna get there.
Yes.
Um, Tell us a little bit about what it's been like for you, content creation, income, defining what works for you. Something
Yeah.
that I've had to grapple with as a new mom is like I can't create content the way I used to create content. I have to level up. I
Mhm.
have to time block, and I think there are these shifts that happen in our life where it's like we have to kind of like what is best for me in this season. And so for me, my life has kind of forced me into something that's more passive, which is actually really great. I love passive income now, and I'm like, let's have passive income for everybody. But I know that like your journey is different from my journey, and
Yeah.
everybody has their own way of like defining their business. And so, like, what works for you in this season, and like,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that portion of things.
So I've been a regular vlogger for 5 years, excepting, last year I got really sick. I still did regularly vlog, but not nearly to the frequency that I had previously. I actually love filming content. I still edit my content. I love editing content. Like that's something that I really love to do. For me, growth has come at the cost of saying I don't want to delegate the things I like to do. I want to delegate the things that I don't like to do. Like I love to write. I do not like website anything. And so I hired an amazing couple that handles my website so I can write things and send them a Word document and I can take pictures and just send them the pictures. And then they put it all together and put it on there. And so I get to delegate the things that make me not feel creative, that make me feel bogged down and stressed so that I can do the things that I love to do. Because we have this joke that's like, what is even the point of being successful? That's what we joke around and say. And sometimes I'm serious though. Like sometimes whenever I'm stressed out and I'm trying to do a lot of work stuff and I have a baseball game to go to, I have to stop and ask myself, what is even the point of being successful if you can't go to your kid's baseball game? Now, I've sat at many baseball games with my iPad doing a doodle and designing something or working on something where I can be doing both things at once. But sometimes the choice is I'm going to be fully present here and not working because what is even the point of being successful if you can't go to your kid's baseball game? What is even the point of finally getting your homestead and your farm if all you're thinking about is content? And so for me, growth has really come at the constant measuring of making sure I'm actually doing what I want to be doing. And then right now for us, we've kind of gone in a really weird direction as far as when you look at trends. Everybody started doing reels, and I decided to start a blog. That's been interesting, but do you know that it's actually been very successful to share poetry and essays and photography on that platform? Who knew? But again, it's that following that leading. We're getting ready to open a brick and mortar store here in the town we're in. We're partnering with Murray McMurray Hatchery and opening the Carolina Homestead Exchange. So you can find that. We have a website for Carolina Homestead Exchange where we're going to be doing hands-on classes, because to me that was the next step that I could palpably see when I talk about that big learning center that I want. And I'll tell you that the process of getting the brick and mortar open has showed me just how not ready I actually am for that big dream. This is growing me. It's teaching me. It is a portion that is the size that I can manage. Our business, I'm actually moving into creating some more courses. I'm actually diving into right now. I've got a guy that I'm working with that's going to be helping me with some filming and some different things. I'm going to be doing a Bible study. That's something that I'm currently developing and working on. I'm not sure when it'll be out. I think probably by the end of this year. All of these things take time. But my big question for myself is, what is even the point of success if you can't do what it is that you want to do? And so there is this place that comes where I've really had to ask myself, what do you want to do? And I tell you, you can get so wrapped up in trying to make a business work that you don't know the answer to that question. And what is even the point of being successful if you're not doing what you want to do? So that's where we are. We want to open a brick and mortar. I want to write poetry. I want to create a Bible study. And I am focused right now that my business is not going to run off with me. I am going to lead this thing where I want it to go. And sometimes the choices I'm making, I wonder, is this the most lucrative choice? I don't know, but what I want is not the most lucrative thing. It's the most soul fulfilling thing. It's the most beneficial thing to people. And again, I think that's the most sustainable thing, doing what you want to do. So, very long answer to your question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. I think the way we define success is really important. And for a lot of different people, that definition is going to be different. But what I hear you saying is success to me is, yeah, following these dreams, turning them into businesses. But really at the heart of it, it's about still having time for my family and being present there. And if that means that I'm not creating content in that moment, which is a source of income for me, that's okay, because that's the whole point, is I'm supposed to be here at my kid's baseball game.
Yeah.
That's really, really valuable. So it sounds like you've got kind of different income streams. You've got YouTube, which pays to be on the platform, which is amazing. And it is a form of passive digital content. Once you get it out there, you made it once and it lasts forever. Yeah. I'll never forget when I think it was your tomato video, I think hit 1 million views, was the first video to hit 1 million views. And it's probably way beyond that now, because you captured people's attention in that video. And it's so cool to see how, and that's another question too, of the mix of content that you make. But you made it once and it continues to serve you, which I think is really powerful. And then you've got brick and mortar stuff, which is really exciting. I'm so excited for that. And then you also have a shop. Are you still doing the shop thing?
So our streams of income right now are obviously YouTube ad revenue. That's a big one. Affiliate marketing, I only work with a few companies. I've been extremely picky about that, because my hope for my viewers is that they know that if I'm ever sharing something with them, my goal is to add value to them. So sometimes I share things that I'm not making any money by sharing. Sometimes I share things that they can go find, and I'll even tell them, you can find it cheaper here. Yeah, I might have an affiliate code over here, but that's the cheapest place that you can get it. My goal is value for my viewers. And with that being the case, sometimes I feel like the best value I can give them, I love Greenstalk, for instance. I love the Greenstalk garden for people who are working with a small space or wanting to learn. And so I can add value for them. I'm an affiliate for Greenstalk. I was one of Greenstalk's first affiliates. And so I do have affiliate marketing income, and I'm actually very successful with that. I think there's a trust built that people know I'm not going to tell them to buy something just because I'm getting paid to tell them that I'm going to buy something. We do sell like a shop. We have merch, t-shirts and sweatshirts and all of that stuff. We do that stuff on pre-order, so it's not always available, but we've done stickers and different things, the brick and mortar. I have done a course in the past, and I am working, like I said, working on some more things like that. Let's see, what else do we have as far as income goes? I actually don't handle a lot of the money stuff. I know like Jeremiah and I definitely work as a team, and he does a lot of our administration. There was something else that I was going to say that was a big one as far as making money. We started our blog. That was another thing, the blog. And then recently we started the podcast. And I haven't taken any steps to monetize the podcast yet because that's something that I'm just adding value. We launched Patreon. That's something that we recently did, which was a really big deal because we wanted to do that for a while. And doing these things in our community has honestly taken us a step beyond ourselves. And Patreon was a thing. We had so many people saying, how can I support you? And we're like, I don't really know exactly how you can support me. And so we started looking at Patreon, but we really wanted to honor that people are in different places. And so we did several tiers, but everybody gets the same thing. And it's just up to them and what they want to do. Because if their heart is to support us, they can support us to the level that they feel comfortable doing that. But we didn't make like a greater reward for people who gave more, because our lowest tier is $3 a month. And for some people, that's a huge sacrifice. And so I want to be able to honor that. That's been massively successful. And it came in at a time that I'd been really sick. And honestly, the economy has been, struggling. A lot of things we were selling before are not doing what they used to. And it's crazy how it's all leveled out and worked out. So yeah, we have definitely diversified. I've written a couple books. That was the other thing. I've got income from the books that I've written. And it is very diverse at this point, which I think is wise. And I hope to continue diversifying that and going into the brick and mortar thing, doing in-person classes. That's not the most lucrative thing. Digital products are definitely more lucrative than in-person because there's such a massive gap in the cap of how many people you can serve. But it's what I want to do. And so we have to continue to do the things that like inspire us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for kind of sharing that with us, because I just want to paint a picture. Like there's so many points of entry for people, and for you, it started with YouTube. So yes, she has all of these different ways that she's monetized her business and her brand, but it started with YouTube and then evolved into these other things. And we saw the book dream come true, and so many other dreams come to fruition. And eventually, like it's all leading to this vision of helping people heal the land.
Another thing too, and this is probably a topic that I know we don't have time to go deeply into, but like when it comes to business, I think a lot of people, I think about like your ladder of believability. Like for instance, at this point, like Roots and Refuge is a completely different entity than Jessica Sowards. Like Roots and Refuge is my business. I own my business. Jeremiah and I own our business. But like I pay you myself. And like all of those streams of income go into Roots and Refuge so that Roots and Refuge can change the world, so that Roots and Refuge can become down the road, years from now, a multi-million-dollar facility that people come from all over to grow food. I actually pay myself, it is nice that my hobbies are gardening and things that are a business expense. Like that's definitely nice, but I pay myself like a normal person income, you know? For me, it was never about, I want to become a massive content creator so I can have all this money and drive, a Maserati and live in a $5 billion home and like all these different things. Like that was never my goal. I really just want to be a regular person that grows food. And so for me, I view it as I am growing a business so that business can reach that end goal. And I get to enjoy security, in the meantime. I get to grow my food. I get to have the time with my kids. And I think that's important. And I know that we probably don't really have time to flesh that out, but that is something to really chew on when you're talking about your goals as an individual. Business goals are a completely different thing. And how you're going to structure everything to support that really does matter in how everything functions.
Yeah, that's really important. We had a couple questions on the live last night about that, and that was a huge a level up for me too. Is just creating an LLC and having my business's own bank account was like,
Mhm.
and then it makes so much sense to like get the business credit card, and then really it's almost like a closed loop regenerative system because you start generating income and you put it back into the business. And so a lot of people think, oh, you're just rolling it, and you're like, honey, not yet. Like I'm paying myself a normal person salary and I'm
Yeah.
growing this garden in my business where it's like this is going back into the big dream. This is going back into the big
Yes.
dream. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And for yeah, for anybody else who's starting out there, like look into getting your own LLC. And it's given me so much clarity. And like it was so hard for me before to like do taxes because I was like, was this a business expense or was this just me
Yeah.
like doing my garden thing? And when you have it all separate, it makes it a lot easier. And for me,
It's
that
stewardship.
yeah,
It's stewardship. Like having your stuff structured properly, keeping your books properly. If you have to hire someone, I have a bookkeeper. She does awesome. Like, because again, I'm not. That's not my strong suit. I want to delegate the things that I'm not good at doing so I can thrive in the things I am good at doing. And for me, that mindset has been just the same thing as the wardrobe. You know, like you got to get the big, overwhelming messes that are obstructing the peace of your space out of the way. And it's the same thing with business. And being a content creator is hard because you're monetizing your life. But, you know, there can be separation in that, and it will allow you to do this in a sustainable and long term way if you allow separation. And I like to joke, you know, like Roots and Refuge is doing way better than Jessica Sowards. Like, that's fine. Like, I like it like that. That's completely fine. Like, I actually like just being a normal person with a budget, you know, like, I prefer that. But, like, it is that thing. I'm growing that garden, like you said. I'm funneling it back in and letting that become a closed loop system because otherwise, like it just wouldn't work to have that massive unobtainable dream. Like it's obtainable with the way that we have it structured now. Like that garden will grow to the point that it can build that learning center that I'm imagining.
yeah.
I'm very confident in that.
That's really good. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes like talking very practically is just it's can be kind of boring or whatever, but I appreciate you being so practical and being like, "Hey, like create your entity. It's actually good that your business is potentially doing better than you might be doing. It's going to serve you in the long run." Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to make. Well, gosh, there's so many other things that we could talk about and many wormholes we could jump into, but thank you so much for joining us today. I wonder if we could just end on like if you could tell your younger version of yourself one thing to hold on to, like going back to that version of you 10 years ago, like what would you want to tell her today?
So I actually have the answer for this because I think this all the time. When we were floundering early on in our farm, couldn't afford to do anything, everything felt hopeless. My dreams made me miserable because the longing was so great I could hardly stand it. And I remember one time when Jeremiah and I had been trying to figure out a way to make things work, and we were trying to force something that wasn't supposed to happen, and it kind of fell apart in our hands. And I remember praying, and I remember hearing that still small voice that said, and I just heard, just wait, my plan is better. And like, when I think of all the times, if I could look face to face at younger me who didn't have the peace to just settle into the long game, I would just want to be like, just wait, his plan is better. Because where I am now, like I feel no rush. That learning center, I'd like to say it will be there in 5 years, it may be 10. I have no idea. Like, but I'm okay with just whatever the process is. I'm going to fixate myself on the next thing that's in front of me, and I'm going to level up my stewardship every single place that I can. And know that I'm just waiting for his plan because it's better. And that would be what I would always say. Like settle down, like buckle into the long game. It is so much better to just approach it patiently and steward the next little thing that's in front. You won't run out of things. Bake bread, clean the wardrobe, make the entity, shoot the video, create the course, all these little things, one bite at a time is how you eat an elephant. And I think that that's also how you obtain a massive dream. It's just with the patience of taking the next bite.
settle into the long game, and his plan
Yeah.
and his timing are perfect, so you can
Yeah.
trust that. Oh, it's really good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't thank you
My
enough.
joy.
Really appreciate it, and thank you everybody for being here today, and we'll catch you soon, Jess.
Bye.
Bye.